So, hey, Eric, a few episodes ago, we decided to do a trilogy.
Yep.
And this episode is the final part where we ask the question, where are your friends now? So, has there ever been a time when you wondered about that, Eric?
Oh, yeah. When I suddenly became a single dad.
So, more on that in a moment. But first, hello, I'm Steve.
And I'm Eric. And together we are two dads with one mission.
Welcome to the 𝗙𝗍𝗃 podcast. This is the show for dads, all about fatherhood, faith, and freedom, one conversation at a time. So tell us more about when you suddenly became a single dad, Eric.
Yeah, so about 7 years ago, my then wife and I split up. And so this was late 2016. And this really was the beginning, like kind of unbeknownst to me, was the beginning of the worst social isolation that I've experienced personally. And I'm kind of a lone wolf and kind of comfortable on my own, but it has limits. And what I experienced over the next 3 to 4 years was just extreme social isolation. And, I know that there were people in my life that could have reached out to me, but I also know and take complete responsibility for the fact that I just chose to kind of, recede back into my own little world, and kind of live in the pain. And as I was going through divorce and custody, which was just a very dark time in my life, as I, pondered, like, am I going to lose my daughter, and like all the other things that go along with a broken relationship of 12 years and all of that. And it was just, it was extreme social isolation mixed with sadness and depression and anxiety, and it was really bad. And there was just seemingly nobody to talk to. But again, it was me doing it. There were resources, there were opportunities, but I was just so far in my own head. I just couldn't kind of make that leap.
Yeah.
So really, upon reflection, it was just the darkest period of time in my life. And so social isolation just magnified everything that was bad.
Yeah. No, it does. I mean, let's just talk about what social isolation in a nutshell is, and why it compounds and makes things like such a deep, dark place. I mean, I've got a similar story myself in terms of, obviously, when I separated from my ex-wife. We were married for 20 years, so it was an extremely long relationship. And it's like, where are your friends now is a real interesting topic, because I soon found out where my friends were. And like you, I didn't have any of them. So I started to spend a great deal of time alone in the isolation. And the thing is, you're comforted by your own voice. And that's where things can get really deep and dark really quickly, because, you've only got yourself and the comfort of your own voice inside your own head to kind of answer
you
questions.
say comfort of your own voice, but I know from my own experience, and I know from listening to men, that voice is oftentimes not comforting at all. It's quite negative.
No, it is, and that's where this compounding effect comes from. Is this negativity, and it almost becomes like a negativity loop.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more we talk and listen to ourselves, it's a vicious circle, but deeper and darker, and more desperation and more anxious and more worry. We get, and for some people, that can even manifest in really deep, dark, suicidal thoughts as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think for me, I've always been, a person that's kind of comfortable alone. I've, even in my school years and things like that, I never had more than one or two friends. I've never been kind of a social butterfly, or somebody that had like 10, 12 friends and, a bunch of buddies I hang out with. It's just not how I'm built. And so when things got tough, the couple friends that I did have just didn't, for whatever reason, maybe it was just the way that I was kind of projecting or whatever it was, but they just didn't feel comfortable kind of reaching out and checking in on me, kind of thing. But had I been built differently, and had 10 or 12 friends, maybe some friends, there would have been like one or two that would have. So,
Yeah.
I was already lean on the social department anyway. And so when things got tough, it was just kind of non-existent.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things spring to mind there. There's another thing that I'm going to move on to, but first, it's just in terms of that friend circle as well. I think what you've described there is often friends who you are really close to may not really know how to handle your individual situation.
It's like death, right? Like a lot of people just they don't know what to say. They're uncomfortable saying
Exactly.
cliche things, so
Exactly.
they just
And I think, we're going to move on and talk about, some potential solutions to avoid social isolation. But it begs to just talk about one right now, which is, you can do yourself a great justice by actually speaking to a couple of your friends right up front to say, look, I know, and deal with the elephant in the room. Look, I know you probably don't know how to handle my situation, and I don't need you to be there for me for that. I just need you to be there for me,
yeah,
as a friend, and to talk about the kind of things that we used to talk about. That's all I need you there for. I don't need you to even involve yourself in the current circumstances and situation that's going on. Just be that great friend you've always been.
That right
and I know
there
there
is
were
a
opportunities.
that's a
there were
great piece of
opportunities.
advice. And like I wish somebody would have told me that early on, or really at any point in my struggle with all that. I if I ever even had that thought, which I don't think I did, I don't know, it would have taken like a little push to do it. But I mean, I think that's a great piece of advice. It's a kind of a proactive, intentional way of saying, hey, I know this is tough and confusing, but all I need you to be is just a friend like we used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And the second thing I wanted to talk about, which is almost like dealing with the other elephant in the room, seeing as we coined or brought that phrase that had been coined up. The second thing I wanted to talk about is, how, we've talked about how, a thing like a divorce or a separation, your current circumstances can manifest in social isolation, but there is another circumstance that happens in life, and it's one of the things that we're here on Allied Dads to talk about is fatherhood. So when you become a father for the first or multiple times, there is a manifestation of social isolation that can happen instantly overnight. It's usually when you're a father for the first time, because prior to being a father, you would have had your own social circles, your own family, and your own kind of connections there. And then when you become a father, something really interesting happens overnight is, you have this newborn, this life that, depends upon you for survival. You have to feed, keep this newborn safe. And in doing so, the social circles that you once had may no longer be available to you in the same context that they were. You might have gone out drinking with your buddies and had a great time once a week, maybe several times a week. And all of a sudden, you've got this newborn that requires every moment of your time. And you and your partner, find yourselves challenged with, how to deal with this, this amazing life that all they do is cry. And you don't know whether they need warmth, need a hug, need food, need changing. And it's a new experience for you, and that in and of itself creates social isolation, because you may have had a sport, so you go play football once a week with your buddies, you go drinking once a week with your buddies, and now you don't play football or drink anymore, because all of your time is devoted to this new amazing human being that you've brought into the world.
And sometimes the new child can create like financial needs that may prevent you from having the money to go out drinking with your buddies or whatever. And so, or even if it's not drinking, maybe it's hobbies, or you just don't have the time, or your priorities change. And I think let's talk a little bit about how a guy might handle that change in priorities, because I know what I've seen in my own life is that some men will embrace that, and other men will kind of resentfully, you know, like adhere to it, but they're angry or they're sad, or you know, they're not embracing it as something as a positive. It's more like something they have to do, and
Yeah.
and that ends up that can lead to social isolation as well. You know, when
Mm.
because it can change your personality. Now you're just kind of angry, and you know, your friends might pick up on that and things like that. So
Yeah, so I mean, by now I think we've done what is social isolation.
yeah.
You know,
So
to yeah,
how do we fix social? How I can tell you from my own experience, so you know, being self-employed, working from home, I was alone a lot anyway, just naturally. And so the first intentional decision that I made to help myself was to join business networking groups, where I'd actually go out. These are local groups that meet, and people talk about their businesses. And I had been in these kinds of business or networking groups before, and I knew it was just a place that I could just kind of show up, like a low level of expectation. I didn't have to necessarily do anything other than talk about my business, which was, you know, kind of a safe space for me. Like, not an issue talking about my business. And that really turned the corner for me as far as getting out of that, my own headspace, and kind of breaking that pattern of social isolation.
yeah. I
So
mean, in terms
if
of
you're self-employed, I would highly recommend, if you're not already, and you're in social isolation, go join some groups, go visit some groups.
no, definitely, I couldn't recommend that. I mean, Eric, you know, our listeners, you know, and viewers may not know, but I used to run a business networking franchise
Right.
here in the UK. So, you know, one of the phrases that I coined, but used to be part of, you know, part of my my kind of repertoire as such was intellectual capital. So, what is intellectual capital? It's the combined total wealth of everybody in that business networking group that you can, you know, you can pick their brains,
Yeah.
you know, on topics and areas of business that they've got some intellectual capital in. It's
Right.
the wealth of that intellectual capital. So, in terms of avoiding social isolation, yeah, business networking is where there is a wealth
Yep.
of connectivity in the
And
room.
a lot of like social functions
Mhm.
spring out of those business networking groups. And so you might find yourself really connecting with another individual, and then maybe you go out to dinner with them, or, like anything can happen at that point, simply because you're now connecting with people.
Definitely, go and grab a
Okay.
coffee with them, etc. You know, and it begs to mention right now, and you know, it would be an injustice if we didn't. It's how we met, Eric. You and I met online in an online
Right.
kind of networking group as such, and that moved to kind of the friendship which we've now
Well,
developed,
and
and the
we've
Allied
talked
Dads
about this.
podcast sprung from that.
We've talked about this in another episode as far as how we met, but it's literally, so one of the solutions to deal with social, or social isolation, is if business networking is not right, or maybe social functions, you're not finding them or whatever, is to start your own group around something that you're passionate about. And you can use apps like Meetup, or there's some other apps out there, or you can just simply go on Facebook and post that you're looking for people that have this similar interest, and you'll meet somewhere, and just take that initiative to connect with others is such a big deal. And it like, there's no better way to get out of your own head than to initiate connecting with people.
Yeah, and I think that's really the great, you know, theme to end on, in
Yeah.
terms of, look, if you want to avoid social isolation, you have to connect with like-minded folks.
Yep.
And there are, you know, we've just given a number of ideas of how you can connect with
Yeah,
like-minded
yeah.
folks.
So focus on one of those. There's passive ways to kind of start connecting with people. Just show up. Just go to a business networking meeting, or go to an existing social function. Just show up. There's like low expectation. And then as you get more advanced and you get more comfortable, maybe initiate something on your own. But those, so we'll put these 4 ideas that we've kind of talked about. We'll put those in the show notes. And again, just put yourself out there. It'll make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Hey, so what's coming up on the next episode, Eric?
All right. So next episode is Unplugged number 3. So
Yep.
stay
So
tuned
that's
for that.
Yeah, that's a chance to Eric and I just to choose a topic, whatever springs to mind, and just go live and unplugged and have a discussion about that.
Yep, we always enjoy doing those. And if you want to connect with us, it's super easy. Just go to allieddads.com and all of our contact information's there. And Steve, what our viewers and listeners need to do right now?
You need to do one thing, and that's basically hit the subscribe or like buttons, and go and find us on your favorite streaming channels.
Absolutely. And let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about. We'd love to address it for you.
Yep, we can do that on an Unplugged or another episode.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks for being here.
See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.